Oh, now
Oh,
all
that's new.
it said that it was being recorded. That's the first time that it said that. So anyway, everybody knows. Uh, so thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. This is the last regular session of this study. I'm really excited about
Woo, yeah.
part. And last week we were not able to get to this point with everybody. So I'm especially happy to see all your smiling faces. And I hope that this morning will go really well. So let's jump right in on looking at, we're going to start with, well, let's start with the kind of the first page that we do for each of the lessons. And I just wanted to ask how people are doing with practicing the drills. And do you have a cool story about practicing the drill sometime? And how are you able to use it?
Hi, it's Louisa. So I wanted to just share that I did not think this point would come, but drills are becoming more natural. Like it's becoming a more natural instinct now.
Oh,
I don't have cool stories to share, just that my mind will go a lot faster to get to a drill. I'm not fighting it, I guess, as much.
okay, great, great. Happy to hear that. Yes. And I think that's one of the things that we want to do is to make this automatic, that we just kind of go, what Louisa is saying is to be automatic of kind of tuning into what's going on with our body or with our mind, and more aware of times maybe it would be good to modulate in some way, either to pull ourselves back into a more of a collected mode, or if we've gotten overwhelmed, to kind of ground ourselves so that we are able to face an overwhelming situation more readily. Okay, that's really good. Diana last week was telling me about doing the drills last Saturday. Do you want to share anything about that?
Well, okay, let's put it this way. Nina called me Friday night and told me that something was not going well with Bob. And that Saturday morning, they were going to, well, that was Friday morning. That's the thing I'm trying to think. Friday morning, they were going to do some tests on him. So that's where I started realizing that it didn't sound good. And I called a friend of mine who's an anesthesiologist and ran the scenario past her. And she said, that doesn't sound too good. And I said, no, it doesn't. I said, which are the, what do you think the outcomes could come from this? And so we talked about it a little bit. And I said, the only reason I want to know this is to have more or less of an idea of how I can be of support to my friend. And so several hours later, I got a phone call from Nina confirming the fact that there was no activity in the brain. And basically the only thing that was keeping him alive was the brain stem, and he was on the ventilator, and they didn't know if he was going to be able to breathe too much after they took him off the ventilator. Well, the hospital very graciously gave us, because I include myself, time to go say goodbye to him. And so that was Saturday morning. And so I realized then I had a choice. What was I going to do? Was I going to just rely on my own understanding, or what? So I started doing the drills. I did both. I'll be honest with you. I was very overwhelmed with this whole thing with my own self, but I was also overwhelmed for her. And then, of course, I tend to go into, I can't say fight, but I don't fight people, I'll fight the situation. Yeah. So I started going through the drills. And by the time I was even doing it in the car on the way to the hospital. So by the time I got there, I was at total peace. And was able to be there for her and be her pilot.
Mhm.
Mine was taken care of.
Yeah,
So I knew exactly which way I was going.
yeah,
And so I was able to be her pilot and to be there for her,
yeah.
which was really awesome. But
This
that's
is
what
like
happened.
a perfect example. Thank you, Diana. I knew you were going to have a story, so that's why I picked on you. You remember when we did that whole series on how to help someone else collect themselves?
Yeah,
This is such a great example of we use the drills to collect ourselves
yeah,
so that we become kind of instead of having to deal with our upset plus their upset,
yeah.
we have collected ourselves so that we can be kind of, to hold space with for the other person and allow them to feel however they want to feel, but we're steady. Okay. And I just think, and I know that Diana was steady. And it was a grueling day, wasn't it?
It was very, yes, it was.
I
It was very, very grueling. It
all
was
day,
very hard.
weren't you? Yeah. Okay. All right. So,
I had various other things with the we were supposed to get together for the study, and I've gotten phone calls from Donna, and then I got a phone call from you, and I was on my way to the hospital, and at the same time I'm finding out about Cecilia, and it was wild. It was quite a ride.
yeah, yeah. So, but the task for the day was not the study.
No, I know.
No, I mean, and actually it turned out not to be the task for any of us.
Oh, I
Uh,
know.
so it was so it was a blessing to be able to focus on praying, to be to set everything aside and focus on praying for Diana and to pray for Tim and Nina. And so, that's the way we roll, right?
Thank you. And thank you, ladies, for praying. I know you all were. You had to be.
Yeah.
I can feel it. So thank you.
All right. Okay. So that's an update. And I think if you are in a situation where you are heading into something to be the support for somebody else, remember that there's that unit in the book if you want to just go back and kind of check that out. But this would be something to go back and review, just for all of the situations where we need to be steady ourselves, because somebody else is the one. It is somebody else's crisis, not our crisis. Yes, Lisa.
I'm sorry, which unit is that?
It is it's the unit that starts on, let's see, we'll go back. In the book, it is section 9, helping others collect themselves.
Thank
Okay.
you. Brilliant.
And,
Thank you.
and by the way, I'm planning to keep the recordings up for about a month. Okay, so if you have ones that you want to catch up with, please catch up with them soon, because for one thing, it won't make much sense if you go really, months and months. You'll kind of go, what on earth are they talking about? But I think that the end of June will probably be a good time to end. All right. So how about if we jump in to the lesson for today, and we'll start on page 119 in the book, and it's the entry is called November 5th, Pilot and the Solidness of Air. And I'm hoping that you guys didn't freak out and think I'm just flipping out into new age weirdness,
I'm sorry, I'm going to correct you. It's page 219.
219. Did I say 219?
Yeah. No, you said 119, but that's
Oh,
right.
I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. Yeah.
Hey, be careful. You got a former new ager here.
Okay. Well, we're happy to have,
It's true though. It's true.
so, but anyway, so this guy, so yeah. So anyway, so how about if we jump into the questions? I realized when I read over this again that I had never defined what the muse is. And so in the second paragraph, it says, having spent most of the book, The War of Art, describing resistance and how to conquer it, Pressfield turns his attention to what happens after you go pro. Once you build the battle over resist and develop the warrior mindset, a curious thing happens. You sit your butt in the chair to write, no excuses, and then the muse shows up. Can we just kind of, so how would we are you understanding what's going on in the analogy that he's using about what the muse is? And I've given the definition. The muse is a person or an imaginary being or a force that gives someone ideas and helps them to write, paint, or make music, or for us, helps us to live the Christian life and actually let Jesus Christ rule in our heart.
Yes.
Okay. So what do you think that I'm driving at with this idea of the muse?
Well,
Inspiration
Mhm.
or inspiration.
Yes. Good.
Would it be like pushing aside the distractions and then
Mhm.
allowing the spirit to give you ideas and the motivation to sit down?
Yeah.
Yes, I would think so.
but I think it's even one step further. Here it's talking about resistance. We've overcome the resistance. So now we are open to listen to the voice of the Lord,
Yes.
because the door is open to be able to really listen. Again, he's with us in Pilate.
Yes.
He's with us in Pilate, but we're not, we're like scared children who go to him in Pilate. But when we give over the resistance, it just means that we calm down to the point where we start to listen.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. That's good. I here's a way that I adapt this in thinking specifically about the Christian life. Okay. After the initial euphoria when we become a believer, and I mean, how it's really fun and
Yes.
and everything, and that then being a Christian becomes hard work. It's hard work to read our Bible, and it's hard work to pray, and it's hard work to go to church when there's so many things, that we could do instead. And, I mean, there's all this hard work that goes into really following the Lord. And so part of resistance, this is the season of overcoming resistance, is to, are we going to keep at it instead of being, in the, like, the parable of the soils where, the seed goes to different people and,
Yeah.
there's a whole
Different
bunch of
depths.
people that where the seed springs up for a while and then, and so at the beginning it seems like, hey, everybody's doing great. But then there's stuff that makes it harder. And are we going to keep going and following the Lord after that? Okay.
Mhm.
So when we get, so there's a kind of a time when it's like, am I going to seriously, follow Jesus, where he says, he who wants to follow me needs to deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. And so it's like going pro is to kind of go, okay, no matter what, I'm going to do my quiet time, even if it's boring. I'm going to pray, even if it feels like my prayers are bouncing off the ceiling. I'm still going to do it. I'm going to just do it. And I'm going to do it out of faith, and I'm not quite sure what that means, but I'm just going to do it because I'm supposed to. And what happens if we persist and we overcome the resistance is that the Lord shows up.
Yep.
You know, and it's like, instead of it being me slogging it out, and it's like my prayers bouncing against the ceiling, it's like the Holy Spirit shows up and he kind of gives an encouragement. Or the Holy Spirit shows up and he'll say, okay, maybe you should do your quiet time this way. And it's like, oh, well, that would be much more fun, you know? Do you see what I'm saying? The Holy Spirit, you'll be praying in the morning and the Holy Spirit will put it in your mind. You know what? I think that I should call Cheryl this morning. And so you call Cheryl and she needs you to talk to her, okay? And you see that there's this life going on that is a conversation between you and a real person, right? It's like, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm working on this writing project and it's so fun. I'm working on a project to try to figure out how many new names of God David made up. And it's just so much fun to be working on it. I've got this Excel. Look at this. Page after page after page of things. Okay, so the overcoming resistance is to, you know, get the idea and then keep going, so that it's not just an idea, but I got it on Excel and I've got it figured out. And I've looked up the Greek, the Hebrew word, you know, there's all this work of overcoming resistance to it. But then I am just waking up the other day and the idea comes into my mind that David says, the Lord is my portion. And so I thought, and all of a sudden the idea comes into my mind from the muse. And the muse says, hey, why don't you check out, you know, that the Lord said that he was the portion for Israel. And he said, the Levites, you don't get any land inheritance because I am your portion. And so it's like, David took all the stuff that was a promise to the Levites. And he says, oh, I love that promise. And so he said, I'm going to make that my own. And so I did. So that caused me to do more research. Do you see how I was doing the work, but then the muse shows up? And I see that as the Holy Spirit showing up as we are continuing. You know, this year we have been working, I mean, this, you know, 5 months, we have been working hard at learning how to let the peace of Christ rule. And it's been drills and getting to know the drills and, you know, like that. But the goal is so that it's not just that we learn methodology, but that the God of peace becomes a person we know. See, the God of peace becomes the muse. Is that a cool idea?
Fantastic.
Okay.
This is wonderful.
That it's like they were doing this together, and that he's, you know, just, you know, if I get wound up, the idea will come to me, you know, Dee Dee.
Yeah.
Got that handled, you know, and it's like it makes it easier to be letting the peace of Christ rule, not because I'm gutting it out or that I'm working really hard to do drills, but that there's the God of peace is there. and I've gotten to know the God of peace. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Edie,
Yeah.
what was the page that you just read from about 5-10 minutes ago? I didn't get it. I'm looking at the lesson plan, but I didn't see the page you're referring to about the muse.
The muse, it's in the, you have the study guide?
Oh, no, I don't.
Oh, okay, well,
Don't.
then just, there'll
I
be, a
have this.
yeah, yeah. So let me, you have a piece of paper?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
taking notes all the time.
All right, so let's say what the muse is a person
She's talking about the paper that she can.
or an imaginary being or force that gives someone ideas and helps them to write, paint, or make music. And then I'm just adding, or to learn how to let the peace of Christ rule.
Yeah, I knew a professional muse years ago. She got paid to be a muse.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I'm familiar with this concept. It's beautiful. Thank you.
okay.
Where do I get the study guide?
I emailed the study guide to people, so you should have gotten the last couple. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
all right, okay.
Can
Yeah.
I ask a question? Because I'm just a little bit lost. I know exactly where we are, but we're working through this study. So last week, are we covering what should have been covered last week?
Mhm.
Yeah, we're doing
Got it.
we never did do the lesson last week.
Okay, got it.
We couldn't get the Diana's group to join us, and that's the main group. So
Okay.
yeah, so we're
Cool.
doing last week's lesson.
We
Perfect.
waited for you, Louisa.
Thank you.
Okay, so the question in the study guide says, in what ways is the pursuit of the presence of God a lovely and precious call, but ephemeral as mist for you as well as for Dee Dee? Okay, so that's,
Well, I don't know, see if I understood. I understood what you meant by that.
okay,
And I think that you made you compared it here, the analogy, I think you made it with the eagle.
yes,
And yeah, air is transparent. It's, it does have a weight, but it's transparent and it seems to be not solid.
yeah,
And this is the presence of God is like that. It's not tangible.
yeah,
Sometimes it is, but not always. But it's solid, it's there,
yeah,
even though we don't seem to understand it.
yeah. I think I jumped in too fast on something. So what do you think was going on with the vision of the eagle? What was the eagle trying to teach about the solidness of air? What was that about?
I'd say faith.
Mhm.
That's what Jeremiah's been talking, was the faith. You can't see it, you can't feel it, you can't, but yet we have faith that God's real.
Yeah,
The eagle has faith that he can fly,
yeah.
he just knows.
And when the eagle flies, this is saying that when Pressfield felt what the eagle felt, he could feel like when he would beat his wings, there would
Mhm.
be like
That pressure.
bars in the water.
Yeah.
So that there was a real thing that he was flying through, or if he was soaring,
Mhm.
that there was a real thing that he was going through, even though you couldn't see what the eagle was using, it was solid. Okay, and that he said you're supposed to learn the things you think are nothing, as weightless as air, are actually powerful, substantial forces, as real and solid as earth. And he said, I believe the eagle. How could I not? I had felt the solidness of air. And I just think this is such a beautiful illustration of, for those of us who are believers, and, and Teddy is exactly right. When we step out in faith and, we're flying and it looks as if there's nothing there, and a non-believer would look at us and go, what the heck are you having faith about that for? I mean, that just seems weird. But for those of us who are believers, when we step out in faith, it's not just, stepping out as if it's stepping out into nothing. When we are believers, we step out and we know, oh, there's reality there. There's substance there, right? We step out in faith, and there's something that catches our wings so that we can fly on it and navigate on it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm going to jump in here for a minute, Dee Dee. Anybody watched Indiana Jones, the movies with Indiana Jones?
Yes.
What about the one of the chalice, the silver chalice?
Yes.
And they come to the point where he has to step out into the abyss.
Yes.
And as he does, he steps out, and the very first thing he does, his foot hits a step.
Yes.
And then once his foot felt the step, then he could see it.
Yes.
And he took the next step, the same thing happened. And he took the next step and the next step. And then all of a sudden, a whole staircase just opened up for him.
And until he tipped forward, he couldn't see.
Exactly.
There was a whole, bridge going over.
And Mom,
That's
but also it opens up the vision for those that were seeing also.
Yeah.
That were there, right? Because I think that's right, Mom, because
Yeah.
you see how, first he takes the step, but then everybody else can be able to see it as he did it, right? In action. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Oh, good. Good.
So I have a comment that will lead into the next kind of question here, which is how has the season of strengthening our pilot helped to ground us in a more solid sense of God's presence?
Yes.
And I think that this is this is absolutely key and crucial, because if you're always feeling like, oh, I can't figure this out. Well, that's where the hard work comes in.
Yes.
So every time we did a drill and we didn't know how, and this applies to our entire life, not just in this study,
Yes.
you did it, you felt God's presence. You did it, you felt, okay, so now it's not a surprise. You know what's coming. We know what God's presence is there because we've experienced it.
Yeah.
And the hardest things are always the things that we're going to resist. Getting our life in order, figuring out our situations, those are the hard things. But we've already had 5 months of feeling God's presence. He has met us every time. It's never been, oh, he didn't show up. He is there. We need to do the work.
Yeah.
So in all of this, I feel like, I kind of feel like this, sometimes there's this floundering that people go through. And it's almost like if you just do it, ask, you will receive. God's presence is there.
Yes.
So now that we know it's there, we shouldn't be falling back. The window, once the study ends, it shouldn't be closing again. That would defeat the whole purpose. We know the Lord is there. We know his presence is there. We're humans, we're going to falter, but he does not.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've gotten out of this strengthening my pilot. Just reminds me, like, I don't have a reason to get crazy or flustered God is there always. So that's kind of what I've learned from this solid sense of God's presence. Like someone was saying, that mist, it's just like air. It's the air we breathe, and we have faith that it's there. That's how God's presence has to be for us.
Yeah. Excellent point. I love that. Yes. And that was what I was hoping for. So this is really cool. Yeah, I'm really happy about that. Yeah.
Validation.
Well, you know what? It's talking about resistance. I was just thinking about it right now. What does the airplane, or the bird for that matter, have to overcome to be able to get in flight? And that is the resistance of what? Of gravity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. And learning to work it, learning the rules.
Uh-huh.
I think this whole thing of learning grounding and learning the stand down drill has been something to say, okay, here are rules for our body that we didn't know before. And let's learn the rules of how to do this so that we can handle that, so that we can fight the bigger fight, which is the fight against the enemy of our soul, which is a different fight. And so we can handle this easily so that we can fight that fight so that we can get through to what we need to get through to. Okay. Yes. All right. Love that.
And I think there's a kind of a level of humility that still needs to remain though. Because what
Oh,
I have
yes.
experienced in this study is my typical normal like craziness, the normal stuff, God has been helping me get under control. But the enemy will try to find another avenue. So maybe he'll make me feel insecure about things that I don't normally even care about. So I think as believers, we need to not forget there is a spiritual element to everything we're doing. We're not doing this just on this wavelength to make ourselves feel good, because that's kind of what I've noticed. The enemy's trying to come from different angles, but because of the practice and because of knowing God's presence is near, it's not even something you've even talked about in any of these lessons, but I want to automatically be like, no, I know my identity as a child of Christ. I'm not going to let this thing kick in. The pilot needs to take control. And that has really helped me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Louisa. You just made it.
Sure.
You just said a mouthful, girl. That was awesome. Thank you.
That was great. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is on 223. And it's the one that is titled November 13,
Ground.
Connecting the Dots. And
Yeah.
I hope that this doesn't get too deep in the weeds of just the world according to Dee Dee.
No.
I don't mean for it to be like that, but because some people don't think about life the way that I do, but I hope you get the idea of it and can apply it. Okay, so let's see. How did Dee Dee's new insight about the groundedness of Pilate and the vastness of God's power shift what happened when she did the grounding drill on this day?
I loved at the bottom of page 223, where you just said that you had been contemplating the story of Mary and Gabriel. That really resounded with me. I read it out loud and savor the words, "Blessed is she who has believed that what the Lord has said to her will be accomplished."
Isn't that the coolest thing?
And to me, that's I've always thought, oh wow, I have to have this huge amount of belief to be able to have God accomplish. No, it's believe God, period.
Yeah.
He said it, he'll do it. And it's a lot more simple.
I'm gonna go grab something. Yeah.
Okay.
I just had a Bible study last night with my daughter in Texas, Stephanie, and the Steven's dad about this verse.
Oh, wow.
And I.
Oh,
just
look.
understand.
Yeah.
Or is there too much glare?
No, you can see it. If you pull it back a little bit more, Dee Dee, it'll,
How about that?
yeah, there we go.
Okay.
There.
One of the things I love about this verse is it's one of the few promises in the Bible that's written to she.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't have to, switch it to she. And so it took me a while to find a picture of Mary and Gabriel that wasn't too, Catholic looking. Spending a year on.
You created that picture. Oh, that's amazing. Beautiful. It is beautiful.
This goes back to, just as an aside, this goes back to one of the things that the Lord has used with me. At the first of the year, giving me a passage to sit in for the whole year and to ponder and meditate on it. And so that I did a whole year on sitting in the story of Mary and Gabriel. And just the Lord just kept, you know, I mean, just teaching different lessons as the year went on in that story. But I kept, you know, at the beginning I was going, Lord, you do know that I'm a Protestant, right? So it's like, but it's an amazing story. And so I just encourage you, this year I am sitting in the verses from Proverbs 4 on above all else, guard your heart, for from it flow all the issues of life. And I find a year of sitting in a passage to be really helpful on deep growth for my soul. So anyway, all right. So I think let's jump forward. One of the things that happened when I did grounding for this one, it was like there was no grounding needed of feeling overwhelmed. It was like doing grounding when I was feeling great. And it just was an amazing experience where it was just turning into joy instead of you know, needing to pull myself together. Okay. So the second question says, Dee Dee used the analogy of herself as a writer and Amy and Hippo as her unruly children. How has practicing the drills helped to teach your children some manners?
I loved it.
You like that?
Love it.
Yeah. So, and think about that for yourself, for survivor mode for you as being like unruly children. Okay, how has that been for you all this year?
It seems like I'm the only one that's answering. I'm sorry.
No, okay,
Take
I had
off
my
my
mute
head,
on.
Teddy, please.
okay. Well, in looking at it that way with unruly children, it's the devil mixing up, stirring the pot.
Yeah.
It's like all these thoughts, all these children running around. And I've learned that to just say, wait a minute, you know, hold it, you know, devil, get thee behind me, realize what it is,
Yeah.
and then become at peace with it.
Yeah.
It's just, he's interjected something and you got to realize what it is and eject it out. For me, that's
okay.
I think at the beginning, Dee Dee, that we were talking, we touched on the subject of having an interior conversation with ourselves about, you know, if I could talk to that person, I would tell them this and this and this and this and this, or, you know, or fears or what ifs or whatever it is. And I think that we've been held hostage by our emotions ever since we were children.
Oh, yes.
And now it's time to train our emotions that they are subject to us. We are not subject to our emotions.
Right.
And they're there to help us. They're tools, but they are not the end all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's just like, that's not who we are.
Yeah.
We are not our emotions. We are in control of our emotions.
Yeah.
not
you
only
know.
that, but I'm thinking the fact is that, you know, the thing about it is that who's in control?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, we can either let our emotions be in control, or we can turn things over to the Lord and rest
Yes.
in the Lord. She who believed
Yeah.
and just believe that he's got it and that he will accomplish and he will do what he has promised to do us. And that's one of them, is take care of us.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so I think that like I said, we've been held hostage to our emotions, and that has done us a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Apart from the damage that we've done to other people. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
given, that's a consequence.
Yeah.
But I think that that's the idea I got about the unruly children. We've got to pull them into the teacher. Either the teacher has control over the classroom or the kids have control over the classroom. There's no middle road.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Yes, Pat.
What you said, and I don't know if it was this chapter, but you said that you were, Are you hearing me okay?
Say it again.
Say it again.
You mentioned about, like the feelings and the things you were going through as they were like, the chaos was like familiar to you. And so that really rang true for me, like my fretting. It's like, that's what I've been doing all my life. It's like I get onto something and it snowballs. So
Yes.
this has really helped me to like catch it, like be aware that it's happening. And that's the very first step, right? Of, acknowledging, okay, this is what's happening.
Yes. Yes.
And now you can do something about it.
Yes. Good.
Because I don't want to stay there.
Good comment.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where I'm talking at me, and I'm a writer, and it's like yesterday, deep in research mode before I do, so all yesterday I was deep in the weeds on this. So as a writer, and that's what I'm talking about, this in the interior world of ideas and the intent, so I have this, a lot of the most important things to me are things that happen in my mind. Okay, I write ideas and I think about them, and like this is an idea that I'm pursuing. Okay, and the additional thing is the whole idea of how to live the Christian life is kind of, it happens up here, my eyeballs and up, it's like, this is where I live my Christian life is in my head, right? And isn't that where a lot of us live the Christian life, is in our head, right? It's like,
That are living it through.
and so we've been taught, we walk by faith and not by sight. And so it's like anything that has to do with the body, we're supposed to go la 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 la.
Yeah.
Everything's supposed to happen up here with ideas and things. And so and for me as an artist, as someone who's a writer, that this is the most important thing. And so that's what I said. And so it was like, I wasn't paying attention to what was going on in my body. I was, it was like, I'm noble to be ignoring it. Okay, I'm noble to be ignoring what's going on. And if I have fear, I take it to the Lord. I have Psalm 34:4. I sought the Lord and he heard me. He delivered me from all my fears. That's all this up. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so this is saying that there was a disconnect between this part and this part. And so I thought, if I learn how to do the drills, okay, that's great, so that I can forget about what's going on in my body because I've handled it and I can get back to this part. Okay, but now then a funny thing, the last two paragraphs, stepping up into the empty air pilot helped me find solid ground for the life of my mind. The practice of grounding drill taught my body how to grasp and receive ethereal promise of abundant strength. My kids needed to learn to behave, but my artist needed to learn that even the interior world of ideas where creativity happens needs the nourishment and stability of the collected body. Okay, so that this is putting the two together, so it's not just
the whole.
Like I'm remember those science fiction movies where you got the head in a jar, right? That's not what we want. We want to have the collected body following Jesus. Okay, so does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, now Lisa, did you have a comment?
Oh, heck yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I've been on mute all this time.
Yeah.
So again, I keep saying I'm new to you guys. I feel a little awkward because I'm coming in at the tail end of this, but let me just say this. This is why I'm here. I am in a community of people that are practicing embodiment, but they're not believers. So I'm the lone wolf there. And then here I'm kind of the lone wolf because I come from a new age embodiment background.
Mhm.
And I think for survival as a church body of believers, but as a humanity, we have to embody. We have a saying out in my world that believers have the savior, but they don't have the body. And the new age movement, they have the body, but they don't have the savior.
Savior.
Let's bring them together.
Yes.
Because we got into a Facebook pissing match a couple weeks ago when someone in the embodiment group mentioned about polyvagal theory and God. People are like, God, who needs God? And I came out as a believer and I said, we are learning to practice embodiment and trauma informed in the church. And a bunch of other people came out as believers too, because we get darts thrown at us. Let me tell you. So as believers, I think also our job, if we're going to be evangelists, is to bring this together so we can go out and speak to people in a way that is helpable and integrity to them as believers. Thank you.
That they can see it. They can see.
Yes. We have to have all of it. We've got to bring it together, the body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah.
We can't just talk the talk. We got to, have Jesus right there walking with us.
I have a quick thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. And so I want to share the screen. I have a little paper.
Oh, and I wanted to say it's for our own health as human beings too. We need to bring all this together. We can't live up in our heads. We can't be healthy and just live up in our heads.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Another way of talking about this is to say we are amphibians. Okay. We are amphibians. We are part body and part spirit. Okay. So we are part flesh. And so the Lord God formed a man from dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. So when we talk about survivor mode, that's the part of us that's the body that was formed out of dust. Okay, adrenaline, a limbic system of the body that interacts with the world around us. Our fallen nature that sins is part of this, the body. It's part. So we have this whole part of us that's flesh. Okay, but then we also we are part spirit. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created male and female, he created them. So when we talk about the peace of Christ, that we're talking about the part of us that's spirit, that is so the peace of Christ ruling in our hearts, the peace of God that passes understanding, that's spirit, that speaks to spirit. The life of the mind and the spirit as we follow Jesus. And one of the things that I have just so appreciated in this study is that Jesus is way more interested in connecting body and spirit in a new way than we have been realizing. So, and I love this verse. Oh, I didn't put the reference. It's from Hebrews 2:14 and 15. It says, since the children have flesh and blood, he too shared, and that means he partook. He took on something he never had before. So he shared in their humanity so that by his death he might break the power of him who holds the power of death, that is the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death.
Wow.
Okay, do you see how this is, is this one of the most powerful verses that you've heard of when it talks about this, helping us as amphibians? We're part body and we're part spirit. And we can live the Christian life. We try to live it all in spirit. Okay. And so this is not to say stop doing any of that. It's to say, you know what, part of what needs to happen is for us to be putting, wholeness of how do we let the peace of Christ rule over our body? Okay,
Oh,
does that make sense?
uh-huh.
Okay, before I go, does anybody have a comment on this, or does it make sense to you when I say we are amphibians?
Didi, did you send that to us?
No,
Would you?
I will
Would you? Okay.
send it to you, okay? And
Thank
so
To
there,
me, what it means is that we evolved from this very basic, animalistic form. And now
Mhm.
as we evolve, we go, and there's people that say that animals have spirit too, obviously, we have that conversation all the time, but yeah. But anyway, the point being that, yeah, we have those, the lower brain and the higher brain, I think is what you're referring to, but beyond the brain is the spirit. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
okay. I don't want to go in too deep into something. I'm just saying
Mhm.
that one of the major insights that I had for when I did this for a whole year, and this is, when I got to this point, it was middle of November of working the drill for now, 11 months. And
Mhm.
it's just that, you know what, living the Christian life just here is not enough. Another way to say this is that Jesus saves us to the uttermost. He didn't just die for this part.
Right.
Okay, he died for for all of us. Okay,
Yes.
and so how to have Christ be Lord over our limbic system? How to have him be Lord over when we go into flight or fight.
Right.
Mhm.
And I think that's really cool. Okay, so we need to jump on because
Didi, can I just say something really quick? I just kind of saw a two-way street. In other words, our body gives us the cues to the mind. Again, we go back to the vagus nerve, all of that. We go back into the mind that something is wrong.
Mhm.
Basically, that's where you said, be curious. That's one-way street. And then the mind is the one we go to pilot, we go through the whole thing. We need to calm our body down to be able to analyze it, go to pilot, ask the Lord, et cetera, and then that sends again commands back to the body
Mhm.
to have the peace or whatever needs to be done. But it's a two-way street.
Yes, it is a two-way street. And we need to have both and this is one reason why all year long I've been talking about we need to preach the gospel to our, limbic system.
Yep.
So when we go into freeze mode, we need to preach the gospel to body brain.
Mhm.
Body brain is firmly in doom and despair. And so
Mhm.
the grounding drill, and we preach the gospel, and the gospel is, hey, Jesus is here, all is well, we're not going to die, and if we do, it's okay. But certainly we're not in despair because Jesus is here. That changes everything. The Lord is here. Okay, do you see how that preaches the gospel, the body brain?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and with like fight or flight, it's like we do the stand down drill, but so it's to preach the gospel to our body, the limbic system, Amy and Hippo, to say it's okay. You don't need to freak out. The Lord is here. There's another way to solve this without us either fighting or running. We can stop and we can settle down so that we can face it. Right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. We are all of the parts of our body need to learn the wonder of the gospel. Okay. All right. Does that make sense? Okay. Very, very quickly, December 1. on 230, page 237. And this is another, I don't know, is there anybody else who has a problem in December?
I do.
Just me.
Me,
Huh?
I do.
You and every homeschooler in the universe.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. It's like I love the routine that happens between January and November. And then everything, I love the schedule of the rest of the year but December, everything goes cattywampus. And then you're having to buy a bunch of gifts. So, Lisa, I've had to work a long time on overcoming fears about finances. So that all comes in. Well, what am I going to buy? And it's going to cost the moon, and then there's all the Hallmark card things of, snow and going back and the sleigh and, cocoa on the porch and, which is why I do not watch any Hallmark movies during December.
That and Norman Rockwell, it really does us in, and Father Knows Best.
It's like,
All that stuff put together, it's not good.
yeah, now, actually, this was a tremendous breakthrough. So this was back in 2018. In 2019, the interesting thing that happened was that my mother had just died in October, so 2019. And you know what? I had already figured out a lot of things for peace. And so, but the biggest kind of ghost in the works was the sadness about my mother. And I don't know, the Lord just gave me so much peace after she died that it made it a quiet, blessed time. And then COVID, it's like there's so much else going on. It's like, but December, no big deal. No big deal. It was so what I'm talking about here on this last little project, it actually really did change a lot of things. Okay, so those of you who just went through the trust training study, before you did this one, I mean, do you recognize that this is just a little project, a trust training project? Did you recognize that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It adds a lot of stuff to it's just another tool in our toolbox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the trust training.
So December, the month of December had been a really difficult time. So I pulled out my tool of trust training and hey, what can I do this month that can be practice for trusting God for this month? Okay. So that's what's going on here. So
basically what you're saying is that you knew you were going into a battle.
I knew I was going into a battle. Yes.
So you started preparing for the battle.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So any insights or ideas that you got out of this? Did anybody else have similar situation for their December?
November, December.
November.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It starts around Thanksgiving and it doesn't end until New Year's, it's like this intense mode, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, this is helpful, Dee Dee. Thank you.
Yes. I used to go to Weight Watchers. There was a great Weight Watcher instructor, and she called Halloween to New Year's Day, the 60-day weekend.
Yeah.
For people who are trying to lose weight, it's like,
it goes all the way to, are you kidding? It goes all the way to Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So there's the weight problems, there's the finances, there's the you know, the Hallmark card problems.
And let's face it, it's family.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I made up the 3x5 card. So describe a time you needed to set goals and strategy to deal with a challenging situation, and how did it work out? So that was me talking about my story. So what was the time that you had?
Up to now, mine was try to find someplace where I could hide.
Oh, yeah.
Forget it. I mean, I'm going to be absent this Christmas. You know, leave me alone.
Hibernate.
Hibernate.
It is. It's kind of like an agonizing time, even though it should be a joyous time to be able to be with family and everything, right? But I don't know if that has to do, at least with me, my temperament, you know, where maybe I'm a perfectionist and I want things to work out really well for everybody, but and a doer, right, for others. So I put these expectations, right, of what it's supposed to be, right? So yeah, it can be quite stressing if you let it get out of hand and you don't prepare ahead of time. Yeah.
Any other comments? Yes, Pat?
Well, I had a time when I was really kind of worried and fretting about my daughter and granddaughter and some of their problems. And so, in their walk with the Lord and everything. And then I realized, you know, I can't really affect their walk with the Lord, or I can't fix these problems. You know, I just have to, you know, just lay them at the foot of the cross and just realize that it's God that's got to do it. And I just need to be faithful and pray. And at that time I was saying too much. And so I just keep very quiet a lot of times, unless I know that Lisa is, you know, really open and wants to know. And so the Lord's really shown me a lot in that regard, and having kind of a game plan of like, there were verses that were really helpful at the time. And
Yeah.
You know, that's, I was going to say real quick, that's true with my granddaughter. She doesn't want to hear anything about it, you know, because she, in the situation with her father, she prayed and prayed to get her out of there, to go to her mom or something. And God didn't answer her prayer. So she's very angry at God. And now she doesn't really believe in God, but she does because she's angry at him. So, yeah.
True.
So all I can
It's a good
do,
place to be.
yeah,
It's a good place to be.
yeah, all I can do is show her, you know, if something happens, I'd simply say, praise the Lord, you know, or something like that. But I don't say anything more. I don't go into it. But I know she's feeling my peace because she wants to come over here. She wants to be with me all the time, you know, and talk and paint. She's painting now, and on the rocks. And so I know that's one of my reasons for being here, is for both of them to see the peace of God.
Yeah.
So, and this really helps me see it. This whole long time of studying it, is that, wow, we're ambassadors, whether we know it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Teddy. Great comment. I want to make two suggestions. One is, since I knew that December was a difficult month, every time December would come around, I would intentionally do a trust training project. Since this is difficult, what's one thing that I can do to work on this time and kind of see if I can solve it in some way? And so the year before, or a couple of years before this year, you know, in the book, I really tackled the issue of, you know, financial fears. And so got through the December as best I could, and then talked things over with Jim, and we started a Christmas fund. And so every month I was putting a certain amount of money away for a Christmas fund. And that kind of removed a lot of my anxiety the next, so by the time this year came along, I had way less anxiety about money because I had handled that, because I knew I had a big pot of money over here that I could draw from. And so I wasn't feeling like, because before we would go into credit card debt and then have to pay a bunch of stuff off, which is ridiculous, right? So, I mean, it comes every year, so make it a budget item. So that was something that the Lord had helped me with. There had been other things that the Lord had helped me with. So this Christmas, actually, the main thing that I was still working on was the anxiety about the scheduling change that was bothering me, and focusing on the peace of, why don't I get the peace that is found in this season? Well, that's not something that I had worked on, especially before, and the Lord really helped me with it. Okay, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I had I love all of our kids, but for years I had a much more difficult time when we would drive up to see our older son and his family, for several reasons. They're the nicest people. They love us, it's not drama things, but it was hard on me. And so because that's a predictable problem, and it happens over and over again, that's a great thing to do a trust training project on. Okay, what am I going to work on this time when I go up there? And it mainly was, that they are, I mean, they love the Lord, but they live most of their life in the body. I mean, they're big into swimming, they're big into biking, everything's body, and doing a bunch of stuff.
No.
I go, oh,
No.
I just get to, I just don't, I had a hard time with that. And so it was just kind of, how can I switch into a different gear so that I'm able to match what they're doing, and not be personally discombobulated by it, because it's not bad at all, but it was just like upsetting to my system. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
So I just encourage you to be on the alert for things like that. So anyway,
I really love what you're saying there, is that when you know a season is coming, is to pick that one, because
yes,
the piece of working on it helps you get through it.
yeah,
Because as you work on it, you're understanding it, and you go, oh, that's why I get upset.
yeah.
And I love that concept. It just went bing in my head,
Oh, good.
that if something's bothering me about family or whatever, it's like, well, see why is that bothering me?
Yes,
because usually it's within you, it's not them.
yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they live in a different world
Mhm.
than I do. Thank goodness they're all believers.
Yes.
They weren't, I mean, I really commiserate with people where there isn't like-mindedness.
Mhm.
We all share the same ideas about the gospel and all of that stuff. It's just that their whole worldview is really different. So, okay. Does that make sense?
Can you give
Yes.
an example of how you matched it?
What?
you're saying? Could you give an example maybe of how you matched? You used the word matching, to them.
Yes.
How? Yes. Could you give one example?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting.
Mhm.
I always want things to go into a counseling direction, and what are you feeling, and how are you, I'm in this world. Okay, so what I learned to do was to set that aside and say, that's me, and I don't have to be that person every minute.
Right.
I remember when my grandmother used to come every single situation, and she's a wonderful Christian, but every situation she came in, she immediately had the same dialogue. She brought up the same points. There was no matching of what was going on in the situation. Okay, so what I figured out is nothing is harmed in me if I take off counselor hat for the weekend.
Mhm.
Right.
Harmed.
Mhm.
And so even if I can't, I mean, there's no way I can do everything that they do.
Mhm.
If I just switch it to say, okay, this weekend, I'm going to focus on them, but I'm not going to focus on counseling them.
Mhm.
I'm going to focus on just being an audience to them.
Mhm.
Okay, does that make sense? It's like,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of the distress was I would go, they don't know me,
Mhm.
right? And they don't know
Yeah.
where are my gifts,
Yeah.
right? Okay,
So
well,
is it the
but
little ego? Would that sort of like a little ego?
yes, when I'm up there, I am mainly, how can I support? And so if laundry needs to be done, nobody gets offended if I do a load of laundry. So
Mhm.
just kind of gather stuff up and, or if the countertop needs to be cleaned, I'll clean so
Mhm.
when I'm up there, I am not up there to be counselor. I am up there just to be Nana.
Mhm.
My job is to look every one of my grandkids in the eye sometime during the weekend and say, I love you. I think you are awesome, in some way. And that's my role up there. And so now when we go up there, I have figured out how to match
Mhm.
where there's not and they don't notice the difference. It's all me in my head.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah.
Didi, in a way, what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, and that is this: you don't expect them to go into your world, you're willing to go into theirs.
Yes,
That's it.
exactly.
That's it.
Yeah. And my world is right here.
Yeah.
And they're not interested in that, But if I have a new book, they go, whoa, I'm so proud of you, and they'll buy it and then they won't read it, So
And let me say what Dee Dee just said right there. I'm finding, because I'm 58 years old and I've lived a lot of life in my 58 years. There are very few people that have that skill of being able to go into someone else's world and go deeply too.
Mhm.
And I would venture to say that most of us here, that's why we're here, because we do have that gift.
Mhm.
It's a big responsibility.
Mhm.
But Lisa, I'm in agreement with you. Thank you for saying that. But if we really stop and step back, and if we want to be effective evangelists, we have got to go into their world. We can't
Oh,
stay
I
in our
agree.
world. We
I
have
agree.
got to go into their world, and we have to be interested in their world. That doesn't mean
Oh,
that
yes.
we're joining them. That means that they are important enough to us, and we love them enough to go into their world and
Yeah.
see how they live or how they
Mhm.
think.
I'm sorry, I don't know who's speaking. I can't see
It's
who's
me.
Oh,
speaking.
Diana.
Oh, hi. I have to be honest with you. I see myself more as a healer than an evangelist because that is my
Mhm.
primary role. That's just how I see myself as a Christian, as a human being. But I absolutely agree with what you're saying. Just to be the presence of God with another human being. I take evangelism out of it, just to be the presence with another human being. That's how I was taught as a healer in the secular world. Yes.
You know what? You are going into their world because of the fact that you are listening to their story.
My therapy means nothing if I'm not present with the person that I'm ministering
Absolutely.
to. That's what I
Oh,
learned.
definitely.
My presence is everything. With the kids too, I get down on my knees, some
Yeah.
eye level with them, and they respond to that.
Sure
They
they do.
really do.
Okay.
how are we doing? Yes, Arlene.
Arlene.
I just wanna when Didi was talking about how she willingly became like what, decided to be understanding to her kids and willing to, to put herself on that, on that matter, or not her own decision, but the plans that you have for just thinking about, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, because whatever I'm thinking or what I want to do, they're not gonna understand, right?
Mhm.
And when you were talking about that, Miss Didi, I was thinking about what Jesus did when he became, he willingly became human, or
Mhm.
and put himself to that position in humanity, and just think about us. And
Mhm.
and that's what I was thinking when you were talking about that or I mean, I'm sure God has the power to understand all humanity because God created us, but then to put himself in that position of being human, it just makes me think that if God, it says in Galatians 2:20, it says Christ who lives in me.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking, yeah, we have to put ourselves into situation. Of course, God is not a God of uh who makes to destroy other relationships or situations. He's a God who has to willingly understands other people, even though you're right, Miss Diana, we don't have to join them or understand or
Mhm.
be willing to like join them, even though we know it's not part of what Christ gives us, not the spirit that lives in us,
Yeah.
but just to understand what the situation, so there'll be no
Mhm.
chaos, for especially with our family members. And with all that, when everybody's talking about that experience with their family or with friends or whoever, I mean, I think about what Jesus did for us.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
I like that when the spirit, the Christ lives in us.
Mhm.
Great,
I yeah.
love that point. Yes.
I think he did, just real quick, I think God did that so we could see, well, he knows what I'm going through because he was here. He's felt all those feelings that he saw those feelings that people went through.
Yeah.
So he can understand me. And to me, that makes me closer to him.
And also, there's also a verse that I heard, I mean, not heard, that I read before, like giving allowances to one another.
Oh,
Amen.
Mhm.
Amen, Arlene. Amen.
Amen.
let's wind it up. We're going a little bit late. The next lesson is the very last one that we have. And we have
Okay.
a couple of things to read, but mainly there's going to be a test, a quiz for you to take. And this is so I want to make sure that you all have the handout for the last
Yeah.
lesson. And if you
I don't.
go back to your email, if you haven't gotten it, Diana should be getting copies to your group, but the rest of us, make sure you look for that and print it out,
Okay.
have it for next time. So, and now timing on the next lesson. There are several things going on at my church next Saturday. So I am thinking it would be wise for, just because of what's going on, I need to not do the lesson for next Saturday, the 5th.
Okay.
Okay. So can we do it this Saturday, the 12th?
I have a graduation. Maureen has a graduation on the 12th.
On the 12th? Okay.
Yeah.
Then do you,
What time?
let's see.
What time is it? It's at 10 o'clock in the morning, I think.
Oh,
I remember.
Mess everything up. Now, the 19th, is that too far for us to go?
Well, the 19th of June is the funeral
The 19th.
for Bob.
Well, let's see what time it is, okay? If it's afternoon, it would work.
I think May's saying she thinks it's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I think she's right.
Okay, well, if it's 2 o'clock,
Yeah.
I think that would be fine. Let's do it on the 19th then,
19th. Sounds good.
right?
On what page are we gonna start?
So, let's see,
Dee Dee, would you send me that last one, please? With everything that's been going on in my life, and I've got a lot of emails, I somehow cannot find yours.
okay,
Sorry about
You
that.
could just resend it to everybody, because I know I didn't
Yeah.
print it.
I'll send it to everybody.
Okay.
And,
You know what?
Maureen,
My birthday's the 18th, so I don't know. My family is planning stuff here. My sons are planning stuff, so I don't know. That's on a Friday.
okay,
I don't know what my weekend will be. I will try to get to.
well, but I want to get this
Get done.
deep on this last one if we can, and I hope that you can come. And, but, okay, all right, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
June 19th.
So,
Okay.
Maureen, did you have something you wanted to say? Okay, all right.
No, thank you. No.
Blessings on everybody, and the
Yes.
next time we'll see each other is on the 19th, Lord willing, okay?
Yes.
I will send that to you right away, okay?
Thank you.
Dee Dee.
Thank
Bye-bye.